start right now living an extraordinary life. Join your life coach and favorite auntie, Carla D. Tillery, and co-host LA on the Chair Chronicles. Having those important life talks and giving you advice to help you live your best life. LA!
Hey, we're back.
We're back with a great question of the day.
Okay, what is that?
So the question of the day is, how do I know when it's the right time to leave my job?
Okay.
How do I know when it's the right time to leave my job?
Wow.
So we've got, this new terminology called the Great Resignation.
Oh, yeah. We've all heard that one.
And any employer out there knows that it is challenging trying to find people to work.
Yeah, there is definitely a shortage. Everywhere you look, there's a sign that says,
there is a sign.
Please be patient. We're short-staffed. We see it in the news.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it is a hot topic right now. Right. And I think as part of life coaching, often a lot of my clients are seeking either opportunities where they are, or they're seeking a pathway to say, should I pivot and do something different? Whether it's leave the company I'm at or try something different or new. And so, it is a part of the life cycle that sometimes you wonder, are you at the right place at the right time?
Right.
Are you at the right job doing the right thing?
Right.
And it even goes back and ties back into defining your purpose and understanding, what you were created to do. Right. And are you doing something because you're just good at it? Are you doing something because it's a super skill? Are you doing something because you're passionate about it? So all of these things are coming into play when we're choosing, employment.
That's true.
And sometimes people are making those choices because they just need a job, they need the income, and it's not really something they want to do. So now it's like, when is it the right time for me to switch gears?
Right. And I think we can all say that we've had those periods in our lifetime where we've thought about what we were doing and are we doing it just for the paycheck?
Right.
Is it something that we really enjoy doing? Do we see growth where we are?
Exactly.
Do we feel stagnant? So I think it really is generational, but the way in which we handle it, I think, is very different when we look at different generations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're speaking general terms again.
Yes.
We always got to put that qualifier out
That's
there.
Right.
Because I think sometimes when you reference like different generationals, millennials, generational Z, the baby boomers, etc., sometimes there's a little pushback.
Right.
But and I oftentimes speak about the different generations because I do think, and you can look at the characteristics, right, of a generation and really kind of see, you're absolutely right. I think there's some differences.
Right.
And so with this great resignation that is happening, what the experts are saying is that the pandemic has really shifted this mindset of making sure we protect our mental health.
Yeah.
And there's some companies and some workplace environments that are, clock driven, monitoring every single second, not allowing the flexibility for dealing with the care of parents, dealing with the care of your children, dealing if you're sick. The state of Connecticut just passed this new law about the family paid leave and requiring everyone to contribute to that so that people can take family leave time. And so there's a lot that is happening all across the country and even in other parts of the world as it relates to workplace conditions.
True.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think this pandemic has brought a lot of these issues. They were underneath and now it's brought it to the surface. It's bubbling up and people are feeling like they have to make a change. And that change can, like you said, can either be one about personal growth, mental health, which is a big one. And I think that is what has probably risen, or at least getting more attention now than ever before. Absolutely.
And so you're seeing so many studies out, surveys going out to different employers now to try to assess culture and the organizational health
Yeah.
Not just of the company itself, but also of the people, the staff.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think by, really at the beginning of the pandemic, really literally shutting everyone down, other than those that are in those positions, unfortunately, with healthcare workers, people that were on the front lines who had to be there. For those that are in the corporate world or the private sector or nonprofits, being home, I think it gave people an opportunity to reassess and assess.
Yes.
What am I doing?
Yes.
Those that felt guilty not being able to spend more time with their children. That change could have changed their mind about what careers look like, and especially
Absolutely.
2-parent households, where both parents were working and stuff, and is it, do I now take a step back and do something different? So as scary as it can be, I think it also opened up a lot of areas of growth for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And then the challenges for single parent homes that during the pandemic had children at home and trying to make sure they're getting their education and working with them and balancing work and all of that. So it's just so much that has been going on. But I do think that some of this shutdown, this shut in has allowed a lot of time to be thinking about a lot of different things.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And so there's been a lot of growth, and there's also been a lot of angst too.
Yeah.
And so, I was watching a show, and I remember, I can't remember the phrase per se, but it talked about how do you be happy when something good for someone else is something bad for you? Wow. And so this great resignation can be good for certain people that now do different things for their health, for opportunity, for their passion, and all of those things. But the companies are suffering. So it's a bad thing for some companies because they're losing talented people, and now they're trying to figure out how do we retain staff? That's the buzzword now in the industry. Yes. How do we retain staff? What do we need to do? Yeah. Let's look at our culture. Let's look at this. And so there's a lot of conversation that's taking place.
I'm sure all the way around. Yeah. Because again, we have great industries that thrive off of having people. So is it that they need to now look at the way in which they, hire, we've always had this thing about Europe, where they took more days off than we did. I mean, they literally shut down sometimes for the summer, whereas, we're just go. We have those 2 weeks or those 4 weeks, and we're like nitpicking of when I'm going to take my time off. And, so our company's really looking at not only how do we retain people because we need their expertise, but how are we treating them so that they would want to stay,
right? And so now it's all about staff engagement, and instead of doing like exit interviews, you're doing stay interviews. And so for the person who's thinking like, when is the right time to leave, it is such a individual kind of decision, and you really got to look at so many different things, right? And a lot of that, particularly if you're in a household and you have a partner or you're married, this is a conversation I think with your partner.
You have to have, right? You should have.
Right? And so sometimes it's balancing that, and whether you're in a relationship where someone really doesn't want you to change because of the income, because of the stability, but yet you're suffering inside because you're not happy or you're not satisfied. And so, there's a lot of things at play. So you've got to ask yourself, do you have to make this decision with someone else? Right. And then the other thing is you really have to, I encourage you to make that list. Yes. What are the pros and what are the cons? And you really have to be thoughtful about that. And so I want to get back to something you opened up because it was so good, about like generations, they make different decisions. And I wholeheartedly agree. I think some people are not always looking at the money. And I think the millennials, from what experts are saying, what I have seen from surveys that have been taken, millennials are making decisions on different reasons other than money. And they're looking at opportunities. They're looking at learning a new skill. They're looking at something that will, just inspire them in a different way. And, and I come I believe from a generation, right?
Right.
I can say that because I've been with, an employer for like almost 3 decades. So, I come from parents who retired from their jobs
absolutely
after 25, 30 plus years. And so I kind of came up with that as my model. Right. And so, I think our generation, really focused on a lot of stability.
Absolutely. And you see that in resumes. The resumes that come across our desk. I mean, there are some that are, 5 pages long because the person has been at a job for a year or 2 years, like you said. But where we've come up and you have maybe a 2-pager,
right?
And
it's so true.
It's like you said, is it about it's not always about the money. Where for us, and I'm not saying that there aren't those of us that are in our generation that haven't just walked away from a job or have
absolutely
we do see that, but for the most part, I really think for the most part, we were taught about stability. And I'm not saying it's not stable if you decide after a year to go somewhere else.
No, but that's how we view it.
That's how we
view it.
And so for us, it was like you get in that job and you work it and you move within, even if you don't move,
you move in.
You're bringing in a paycheck. You're bringing in some money here. And again, our goals were different. It was about buying your first home, and it was about, insurance and having all these things. Whereas, the younger generation is like, listen, I want to learn a new skill.
Right.
And then I want to take that and go somewhere else and learn something that I didn't even go to school for.
Right. And so, and we're also, so some of the things you were just saying about sort of the stability, and I remember using this terminology that, millennials take more risk than I do. And then I was corrected, which, I accepted that because I think, again, this is my viewpoint of what, not being at one place for a period of time.
Right.
To me, that represents stability, but I do recognize that someone else can have a different perspective, right? I'm definitely open to that. And I think millennials are just living in a different space than when I was sort of making those decisions. The housing market was not like what it is.
Exactly.
My college debt was not like what it is for my children, what I know other parents are dealing with. And so it is a different space that we're living in right now than it was, 10, 15 plus years ago.
Right.
And so they're having to make different decisions because they're living in a different space.
Right.
And so millennials are not looking for housing. It's very difficult to
find something that they can afford. So they're staying home longer,
renting with roommates, doing that sort of thing because it is very challenging, to have your own home. And so that gives them the freedom, to be able to do some other things. So it's really amazing. Because I think we can slice and dice this so many different ways. But I will say it's a personal decision. I do think looking at the pros and cons is necessary to make sure that it's the right decision for you or for your household, right? And you've got to think about all of these different things. So yes, I don't think you can avoid considering salary. Right? Because you need to... You're going to have to
earn a living.
You're going to have to earn a living, and you're going to have to figure out what that salary will support, what type of living, right? You also have to think about your mental health and the flexibility. Like, how stressful is it going to be learning something new versus utilizing a skill set that, you can just elevate and enhance. Right? So you've got to think about the stress level. You've got to think about your mental health. You have to think about the culture change or not. If you do something different, what kind of culture are you looking for in terms of flexibility, how they treat people, how they acknowledge your value and what you bring to the company. Are there ownership and growth opportunities there? So there's a lot about the culture that you also need to be thinking about, whether you want to make a switch to a different job or in a different industry. And you also got to know, what are you going to bring to the table?
That's it.
I mean, you really do have to assess your skill set, right? Because I think at the end of the day, unless you're an entrepreneur and starting something on your own, every company is going to ask what you're going to bring to the table.
That's it.
Where is your value? And how do you add to the company? Are you just a body? And maybe there's some that just need someone there to fill in, and it's very easy for you to learn how to do the job. But there may be other industries and other places where they're really looking for you to get invested. Invested in company policy and philosophy.
And again, you also take these same pros and cons and what adds value to you. You bring that to your mindset when you're even thinking about branching out on your own. What are you bringing to the table? What makes you different from someone that's already doing that? So it's still that same thought processes. How will this change my life? And let's just be clear, when you branch out on your own, you're also, your income is going to be a big factor on, should I leave my job before I decide to branch out on my own? Or I'm just going to do it. And again, we have heard both sides of the coin where people have done it. They just had to quit. They knew it. They felt it within. It wasn't an emotional response to anything. They really thought about it and they just did it, and it worked. So again, like you said, this is an individual thing.
It's an individual decision. Absolutely.
One size doesn't fit all.
One size does not fit all. And so I think doing, again, the pros and cons is a way to start to decipher which move is the right move. Do you stay? Do you leave? And then what do you go to if you do decide to leave? Because that's a whole nother sort of step. Maybe there are a lot of people that are sharing different job opportunities. So, and you might not have even thought about leaving, and then you just see this new opportunity that gets you thinking. I just think that that everyone needs to be careful with just trying to say people are only leaving for the money, because I think that's not true. It's
not true.
And that there, in some cases, that the company was not doing well if someone leaves, because that may not be true either. They could be doing very well and the person just wants something different.
And that's okay.
I think if there's anything that's common that's going on, is that there is just huge market of opportunity. And I think because of the space that the world has been in as a result of the pandemic, it has allowed a lot of people to just think about how to reset.
And it's exciting. I think it's, for some, it might be a little scary, but, to watch it happen and watch people, decide to make that change or pivot, it has been some great success stories. There has been some great inspirational stories. So again, you really have to look at your situation, and your situation is definitely the vision, the way in which you need to see whether or not you should be leaving your job. And it's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
So what do you think some people's influences are, though? Because a lot of times people say, well, what do you think? What do you think I should do? And so people have different influences that help them, with their decision making. And, again, sometimes it's not about the dollar. It's not about all these other things. But it could be because you're just comparing yourself. You see somebody else taking it. And it's like, oh, wow, that looks...
I could do that.
And sometimes you don't even know their full story. And so maybe you need to really do some investigation and some research to make sure, that if there is something you want to try and explore, that you could have some insights on before you make that leap.
And even if you know someone that has done it, maybe two or three people that that have made this transition, whether they just branched out on their own or whether they've changed industries, whatever. And you can, just ask them, what made you decide to do that? Probing questions. And again, this is not for them to answer the question for yourself, but it's just for you to get a perspective of how they did it. Because I know someone that sat down one day and just said to me, I'm leaving the job. And I'm like, what? And I mean, it opened doors for him that and it still is. And this happened literally 10 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
And they are still rolling.
They're still
just, I mean, they're just, every round go. It's wonderful to see.
So I encourage people to get a mentor.
Yes.
When I think, or a life coach, I got to say that, right?
Right.
Because I think that they can speak hopefully from a place of just not having any biases to help give you, ask you the right questions and get you thinking in the right way so that you can ultimately make the decision for yourself.
That's a good.
And so so there can be some influences, but I think having a mentor or having a life coach is definitely some good alternatives. And like you said, just having somebody to kind of show you a peep into how they've overcome certain things or how they've challenged themselves in certain areas can definitely be helpful.
Yeah. No, that's good.
What if you don't feel like you don't really want to look anywhere, but you want to change where you are? Because knowing whether to leave or not, sometimes you're asking yourself that question.
Right.
But you might be asking yourself that question only because you don't see a way to change where you are. And that can be challenging, perhaps depending on your position, if you have any influence or not with, how the company is being operated. But so there could be a lot of different things that you may be able to do or suggest to do, but you might not have the power to do it.
Right. So in times like those, I believe that, again, you find someone within the company that you feel comfortable with talking to, and look at the growth structure. Is it that you need to be in a whole different position, doing something totally different, or added responsibilities, or is there a talent or something that you can bring to that industry? And again, sometimes we sit on our own talents because we don't even know that we have that talent, you know? And sometimes those are things that we have to explore. What is it that I bring to the table? We all have a specialty.
Right.
So it's just figuring out what that is and what that looks like. And then, like you said, you can have growth and you can have change right within the job that you currently have. So again, like you said, asking the right questions. And I think finding where your value is. Right. And sometimes you have to learn how to market yourself. That's it.
If you're unhappy, then, your unhappiness or your unsatisfaction could be for a variety of things. Right. But if it is because they don't see you and you're not getting promoted, you're not seeing any growth, then you got to really find a way to sell yourself. Sometimes we're anxious to sell ourselves outside of where we are to a new employer who don't know you, don't know your stuff. Than to people that are already in your circle and where you work currently.
And I think it's okay, every now and again, go on your company's website and see what job opportunities that they're posting for.
Absolutely.
Doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean because you've been in the finance department for 10 years that you can't go and work in the HR department. I'm sure that there are some transferable skills,
Yeah, I remember for a season of time, I solely did just career coaching and really worked with a lot of people who were pivoting into a new industry, helping them with their resume to develop and illustrate those transferable skills. Because many of them wanted to do something different, or they felt like they were too old to be seen, to be able to do certain things because they figured that the company could hire someone younger for the job. And so when you're 50 or 60 trying to make a whole shift, it's a little bit more challenging. You do have to find a way to craft that language and that message about transferable skills. But you're absolutely right. There's opportunities to look within your company to positions that are available and work with a career coach. Work with someone who can help you identify which skills do I have and what other industries is not so far of a leap for me to tap into. So
that's good.
There could be a lot of different avenues to explore.
This is a really good question. It's relevant
for
today.
We hope some of this discussion has been helpful to you if you're pondering about whether it's time for you to leave. and you can give it some thought and weigh in on some of the things that we brought out to you about a mentor, about a coach to help you sort of see everything. Go through that list of your pros and cons, and maybe make sure you're finding out who else needs to be a part of that decision, particularly if what you're doing could really significantly impact someone else that you're involved with. So much to unpack and explore. So we hope that if you are thinking about it, that you will take the necessary time to make the right decision for your life, because we want you to live your best life. So listen, always stay tuned and stay connected with us on The Chair Chronicles.